I think you were wonderful in the film.
Thank you very much.
What was your take on the character?
I had to just make her very personal to me. I read a lot about women during that time and how little rights they had and kind of what the position she was in and who she would have been at that time, how she would have felt as a woman, and tried to put myself in her shoes. And so I could see why she would be so determined to make him strong and why she would be somewhat tyrannical in her ways because she had to be. So I made it personal. I explained it to myself so I could be her completely and not apologize for her.
Now she was the queen. That means she came from a high family somewhere. Do you know her backstory?
A bit. I mean, he made her a queen, and it was where Philip conquered the area she lived in. I think not dissimilar to when we see Alexander conquer an area and take a queen. I don't think it's that different. So I don't know. We don't know much about her. We do a little, but I was more focused on kind of where she was when we met her, which was she was ripped away from whatever that home was, and she was the outsider, and in the environment we meet her in, she doesn't fit with everybody else.
Why do you think she was estranged from Philip?
Because he's a horrible man. Because he's mean. I think a few things. I think probably the marriages of that time weren't about falling in love, and I think somehow it was somewhat arranged, and he took her as a wife, and I think she probably never fell in love with him. I think the idea also of that time is you bore children, but you weren't a part of an equal parenting. You know, you were the vessel of which a man gave birth to a child in the world that was his. And I think she wasn't treated as an equal. She didn't feel like an equal. I think she was kind of in her little corner of her room, which is every time we see her, she's in this little, very dark room. And we meet her, and he attempts to rape her and disrespect her. And so she's kind of survived all this and comes from this place of being very much with her gods and her sun and her snakes to just get through it.
Could you explain the part with the gods?
She's a follower of Dionysus, who is the god of chaos, and that kind of, I mean, the more I read about it, it almost sounds kind of this crazy thing, but the people that followed Dionysus would almost go into like seances or places where they drink too much wine or whatever it was, or spin around or get into the moon and the outside and get naked or whatever it was. They would bring themselves to a heightened place where they would then, through that chaos, find something that they felt was speaking to them. And so she was, in history, she did have snakes and things like that. So I think she was connected to the elements and to things that had a danger to them and maybe an honesty to them. And maybe I think also she used that as a kind of a wall to keep people away from her.
She's repeatedly being referred to as a sorceress. Do you think there was she like dabbling in the dark arts, or this was just people's prejudices?
No, I think during that time you didn't really know. I mean, it's like her saying he's the son of Zeus, and during that time they didn't understand conception. So she really did feel that. The division between people and just regular human beings and gods was not as divided as it is in our day and age. So I think, but they felt that she had some kind of power and some kind of strength in her manipulating or in her way. Yeah, there was something about her clearly, and something about Alexander that was different.
Do you think this proximity of man to God that you're talking about, do you think it has something to do with why Alexander could even dream of doing what he did?
I think so. Yeah, I think he had to believe, had to believe the myths and believe that he could be greater than what they said an average man could do this, or you're incapable of doing that, and he felt he could, and certainly did, take on more than most men. Still to this day, at his age, what he accomplished, what he did is unbelievable. So there was something special about him.
He was the complete center of her life. She was also a player. I mean, she was, all throughout his life, she was a player, was she not? I mean, politically. Could you explain how her influence worked?
Well, I think it's interesting because it's that same thing of survival, because I think she had strong opinions about military, about, I'm sure she'd like to get out there herself if women were allowed. And she was watching. She was aware of, if this person took power, then you would lose this power. And if you put this person in a position here, then they're going to gain too much and they could hurt. So she kind of watched it like a chess game, and she was very smart. And I think when her only thing is she pushed him too far, and she also wanted to be with him a lot. I personally think that wasn't, some people could interpret that as she simply wanted to take power, but I also think she was in danger. And, she was later stoned to death. And she wanted to be close to what was safe. And if he was king and she was next to him, she was safe.
There's a very intense scene, kind of Oedipal scene. Was there something Oedipal going on between her and Alexander?
I don't think so. I think everybody had to... Some people believe there was, but I don't, because I think she had bad relationships with men, so I don't think she was that kind of sensual woman in that way. I think she was very focused on power and survival. And I think she was actually loved him very much, and I don't think she would have confused him in that way.
Do you think we appreciate the era that the story takes place in? Do we appreciate it enough as the origin of so much of our thoughts? Movies, I mean, Aristotle, do you think?
I think we should. I certainly think we all got, when I was watching this for the first time, I heard the philosophers talk, and I thought, I realized how evolved we were so many thousands of years ago, and maybe how much we still don't understand to this day. And yeah, absolutely, I think we should look back and realize kind of maybe what we're doing today, how we're advancing that philosophy, how we're advancing art, how we're advancing thought, or are we going backwards?
Also, this whole morality that they had, which was very different, and it wasn't so judgmental like today.
That's right.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, they didn't have labels for everything, and they didn't judge, and it was a freer society. It was what some people consider more barbaric. I actually don't. I think it was more honest, in some ways, barbaric in some ways, but more honest, and certainly with sexuality and with many things was, the idea that thousands of years later we still are, trying to question or shy about things it shows we haven't evolved very much.
What did you think of Oliver's screenplay when you read it?
I thought it was brilliant. I was moved. I was crying through the whole thing. I'd read a few different, whether it was about men fighting together and what that was, and that speech, or when Alexander talks to his men about their families and their country. I was crying through the whole thing. I'm very emotional about these kind of projects. So I loved it. I've just read it like just these great words that I just wanted to be a part of the project.
What about Oliver Stone, the director?
I just think he's a genius. I think he's, and not a genius because he just by accident, he's a genius because he is a hard-working man, and he is a very deeply thinking man, and he will analyze himself and everything else to try to figure out what it is and how to make it better and how to understand life and human behavior, and I admire him so much. It was great to work with him because you just learn, you absorb so much. He makes you question so much.
Angelina, you're having a wonderful run with one wonderful role after another. How do you keep it up?
Just, I don't know, I'm going to keep doing things that I love.
Is that the formula?
I suppose, well, I think whether things are accepted well or not in this business, you just, you have to believe in them and do them for the right reasons. And if they're successful, great, but you have to just believe in them no matter what.
You were working with some really wonderful actors as well. What do you think of Alexander? What do you think of Colin?
Oh, I think he's amazing. I'm so proud of him. I'm like his mom. I just, I knew he could do it. I'd met him, and I know his spirit, and I know how bold he is and how hardworking he is. But to really see him on screen and to see what he did, it's awesome. It's just magnificent. I hope everybody appreciates it as much as they should, because it really is an amazing thing he did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.